Thank you, viewers, for tuning in to Diversity Dignified. If you're new to this program, then I'll just give you a recap that this program is intended to sort of extend the proverbial olive branch, and we are addressing LGBTQ issues. And today I have a lovely guest, Lor Voornas from 97.9. She's going to be joining us today, and we're going to be talking about the issue of bullying. There seems to be a lot of that going on right now. This morning, it's interesting, as you know, I live in a great apartment and there's a wonderful community room. And when I walked in, what I walked into was the TV playing, and environmental protections were withdrawn, and immigrants and refugees are being rounded up to be deported. And the LGBT community is also a target for bullying. Webster's dictionary defines bullying as an imbalance of power where someone is forcing, coercing, threatening, or intimidating another person into doing something that they don't want to do. It's also done over time and repetitively. And transgender people, LGBT people, are particularly susceptible to that. In part, 68% of them, when they come out to their families and friends, experience rejection, and that puts them more at risk. The LGBT community is about twice as likely to have problems with substances and 4 times as likely to deal with issues of suicidality, with transgender folks being really a real high percentage of that population. So Lori has agreed to come on the show, and we're going to discuss this. About a year ago, I heard Lori's program where you had a niece who was experiencing bullying. She has 2 parents who are lesbians. And I remember hearing that, and it really struck a chord in my heart.
You're close.
Okay,
It's
well, you can clarify.
My stepdaughter.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Who was in the 5th grade, and there was a substitute teacher, and they had a topic that turned into sort of unintentionally to gay parents, and it was sort of led by the substitute teacher how that's. I can't remember the exact word that she used, but it was basically abnormal.
Right.
You know,
setting the tone.
Setting the tone.
Yep.
And a lot of my stepdaughter's classmates know about that she has 2. She actually has 4. Yeah. Tis the way it is these days.
Yes, it is.
And they were really uncomfortable, and I felt so bad. Chloe came home from that experience and she was crying, and we were like, what's the matter? And she said what happened in class and how uncomfortable she was made to feel. And she said something that stuck with both my wife and I, where we were like, wow. She said, I'm not even gay, and this is upsetting me. How do you deal with that?
How do you deal with it?
And I thought, wow, that is, you know, how awful. The good news is that the real teacher called me and dealt with this immediately.
Wonderful.
Because he said, you know, even though I wasn't in the class, I'm still responsible for the class, and I try to make my class incredibly inclusive and a warm, safe environment for all the kids. So I thought it was dealt with really well, and all the kids basically ended in a group hug because they're in 5th grade. Everything ends in a group hug in 5th grade for some reason. So I thought that turned out very well, but it brings up an issue that is, you know, underlying for a lot of people. You know, she's not gay, if she does know, whatever. But she, you know, is surrounded by it, and it was a real eye-opener for her. Like, my gosh, you know, if I have to deal with this like in a 3rd person kind of thing, you're a 1st person.
Right.
How do you deal with it? And, you know, I'm at the age now where I think my biggest my give a darn is more broken the older I get.
Yeah, you don't care, right.
It breaks. But I came out on the air almost 6 years ago.
Okay.
And I've been on the radio for, oh my God, hang on, let me do quick math here, for almost 25 years.
Wow, okay.
So for a majority of that time, wasn't that, I guess it was, I didn't come out. I was very general. Mm-hmm. You know, I never said, I have a boyfriend.
Sure.
I just never
came out with it though.
Right, I never talked about it.
Yep.
And when I did, and it was, I don't know why, I was scared to death to come out. And all my coworkers and everybody knows, so it wasn't like I wasn't out. It was just that I wasn't out on, in public.
And there's a risk.
There's a risk, you know, and it really though, I got hundreds and hundreds of emails. And I think out of all the responses, one was negative.
Really? Oh, that's heartwarming.
It was,
Yes.
it was life-changing for me because I was like, what was I so afraid of? First of all, they said it was the worst kept secret ever because they all knew.
Oh, okay.
I was like, good to know.
But on some level though, Lori, I mean, you...
But I didn't know.
Right.
They knew.
Okay.
You know, I thought I was keeping a great secret and no one... so it was, after that, it's never an issue.
Okay.
For me, at this point, I mean, I think, I remember, we all have a coming out story.
That was actually,
Is
yes.
Is that the segue?
Yes.
I'll lead you into it. My coming out story is kind of funny because I was, I guess, a late bloomer. I mean, if you look at pictures of me as a child, it's pretty obvious. But it was funny. I was 18 years old, and I was working. And I was working 12-hour shifts putting together microchips in Idaho. And it was the 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift.
Wow.
Don't be jealous. and I was sitting next to a couple of girls, and for 12 hours you talk about everything because it's very quiet work.
Yes.
It's not like you just sit there and you move these microchips over for one. Very I didn't go to college, so I'm sitting there, and one day she says to me, "If we weren't at work, I don't know what I would do." And I said, and then I said, if we weren't at work, I might let you do it. And then I was like, oh my God. So after that, I was like, everything went, and all of a sudden, everything made sense. Like I never thought, I never thought about it. I just thought, oh my God, I'm gay. That's it, right? And it was like, that's it. That makes perfect sense. And I was so psyched. I was like, oh my God, this is the best news ever. I figured it out. I love it. Oh, I got to tell everybody.
Now, how were people's reactions?
See, this is when the 18-year-old learned a valuable lesson. You may be super psyched about your revelation and your identity and how everything in life makes perfect sense, but not everybody around you in Idaho particularly is going to share your enthusiasm.
Sure.
So that was like the big step into reality. I remember I was working as a receptionist for Shearson Lehman Brothers in Boise, Idaho. Again, I didn't go to college. Answering phones and stuff, and this was in the 80s and mid 80s. And I remember telling like my work buddy there, oh my God, okay, so get this. So guess I'm gay, right? And she was like, really taken aback and like cold as ice. And I thought, A week later I was fired.
Oh, huge. Yep.
And I thought, okay, I get it. Don't tell people. I get it. Not everybody's going to share your enthusiasm.
Right.
So after that, I was like, I mean, part of my acceptance of it and just living, and going, wow, is that to me, it was like, oh, this is the best news ever.
Yep.
Everybody's going to be so psyched. All my friends in high school, you know, it's going to make such sense to everybody. And it didn't. And I was really confused by that. But, you know, I just learned, okay, so it's something that you sort of hold on to.
Keep to yourself.
Keep to yourself.
Yes, yes.
And be a little smarter about who you share it with.
And I think that's sad, though, in many ways. That that you can't just be free, abandoned with it, because there are repercussions. Now I'm curious, because you did this in the mid-'80s, and there really wasn't the awareness that we have today.
Correct.
What do you think about awareness maybe in some ways being a double-edged sword, making things worse in some ways?
That's a great perspective and interesting. And yeah, I think people, the reason that it's a couple of things, but mostly fear.
Yes.
It's mostly fear of the unknown. Because I think most people would be shocked if all of a sudden all gay people or transgendered or LGBTQ turned purple one day.
Right.
I think they would pee themselves at, oh my God,
how many?
Bob down the street. I had no idea, you
Yes.
know, and I love Bob down the street, you know.
Right.
How do I reconcile?
So besides fear, though, what else sometimes when I think about it, I can't help but wonder, is it because maybe we're all a little more fluid about the sexuality and gender than we want to talk about, and that we're forcing people to maybe look within, that maybe they think about these things too, and they don't want to go there. You know what I mean? It's sort of a projection to put that off.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, you know, it's still, you know, an uncomfortable topic, and certainly nothing you bring up at Thanksgiving. But, you know, I think it forces people to just think about human beings, because you could substitute race, religion,
Sure,
you know,
yes,
for the same type of deal. But when you add sexuality to it, there's even more of a edge.
I know. I've noticed that as well.
Yeah,
yes.
because it's you know, the forbidden.
Right.
Oh God, it's wrong.
Right.
You know, and just because you're gay, it's not about sex. You know.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
That's like saying that's just a ridiculous thing.
Sure.
But it is about sexuality, and so I think that freaks people out.
I think it
period.
does too. Yeah. It's sort of. I mean, it is how we see ourselves rather. And I think like trans folks in particular, and even gay folks, have an additional burden, because if you're a person of color, in theory, your family isn't going to reject you for being a person of color.
True.
But you have the trans experience where, you know, 68% of LGBT folks are being rejected by their families. And I think that's a more difficult component, that the community is harder on us in some ways.
Oh, I agree.
Where do you think the bullying, though, like, where does it cross? Okay, so I'm afraid of a lot of things, but that doesn't go around giving me, I don't tell myself, well, it's okay to, you know, bully so-and-so, I don't understand it. Where do you think, and just, I don't care that you're not a college graduate, where do you think that the idea that bullying, where does it come from? Where do you
I think it comes from, I mean, it starts as kids, obviously, and I think it comes from a place of power. I think it comes from ego and insecurity. I think that more studies need to be done about the bullies.
Yes.
Also, because I'll bet you will find some pretty messed up kids.
Yes.
And some kids that are dealing with some terrible problems. Now, it's not the most popular view because I'm not taking their side by any means.
No.
But you know, they obviously have to bully to feel better.
Yes.
And I'm no doctor, but you have a problem if that's how you have to feel better, by putting somebody else down.
Yeah, both people lose. We lose out with the person who is being bullied and the person who's doing it. You know, and my goal always is to sort of bring the person into the light. It's not, you know, getting angry and punitive, I'm not sure it works. I think we know that it really doesn't work, actually. And so I think you're right, that there does need to be more studies. Do you know of any program? Actually, I mean,
I do.
You do know some programs?
I
Good.
do,
Oh, good, because I kind of
I came prepared for this one because I had seen a video online of a couple of best friends in 8th grade, and you know, that's just spot on bullying years, up in Auburn Middle School. And they both were bullied so badly that they had to move schools.
Okay.
Which I find unacceptable.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, I don't understand why you have to change your life to get away from the bad behavior. The bad behavior should stop.
Right.
But it didn't.
Right.
And so they moved to different schools. And the reason that I followed these girls and got in touch with them is because they made a video about how they wanted to turn how they were bullied into stopping bullying.
Yeah.
And I thought that's great. So there is actually a national foundation called StopBullyingNowFoundation.org for more information on this.
Great.
And they were raising money for that. And there's, I think schools know it's a problem, so they're trying to get to kids at an earlier age. I went to a school in Portland, a licensed middle school, because they had a Unity Day.
Okay.
And a fifth grader reached out to me and said, hey, would you like to wear orange for Unity Day? And it's all in recognition of stopping bullying. And I said, absolutely. So the whole show wore orange. We took a picture, and I went to their school.
Yeah.
And I found this kid who was just the sweetest fifth grader in the world. And I interviewed her about bullying and how it's wrong, and how their school is really trying to just bring attention to it. Nobody in the class was bullied, but they knew of it, and they knew where to look for it. They knew, if somebody at the cafeteria was being, they knew what to look for and what to do and try and help the situation.
Sure.
And I love that. Schools have got to get involved. They have to, because that's where the most of it is breeding in there.
Yes.
And then
actually, when I was looking and researching, I was astounded because it was all about school and school children, because I do think adults bully each other as well. That happens,
course.
Yes. But yes, that is where it's the breeding ground. And
so if it's the breeding ground, it can also be the place where it stops.
Yep.
Or at least is addressed and try to stop it. So StopBullyingNowFoundation.org is a great
wonderful
resource for just all sorts of, if you have questions about it, if you don't know what to do.
Go to them.
Yeah, go to them.
Yeah, wonderful. That does sound good. Were you bullied as a kid at all?
No, and you know why? I'll tell you why. I was thinking about this. I was like, was I bullied? And I wasn't bullied for two reasons. I was the funny kid.
Okay.
Funny kids are rarely bullied, I think. And two, I was really ignorant. I mean, maybe they did bully me, but I'm such an easygoing human being, even as a kid, that I didn't, I either, didn't recognize it, but it was nothing chronic like you hear about,
Now, well, I think, you and I are older, and the fact of the matter is, I think it's escalated in part, let's be honest, because of social media and the internet.
Oh my God.
So even if, I was bullied a little bit, but there was reprieve. It was maybe just on the playground.
Right.
But then I'd come home and, I wouldn't be bullied or.
Right.
And I think now the dilemma, maybe it's being highlighted in part because it's almost, if you're being a target, it's ongoing. There's no reprieve.
There's no escaping it.
Yeah, it's on your phones, it's on your emails.
It's 24/7.
Yes.
And it's a whole new world with social media and how you can hide.
Yes.
You can hide.
Be anonymous.
Be anonymous and be mean. When the comments on things are just horrible.
Right. Don't listen to them. Yeah. Don't read them.
And it's just I don't get it. I don't know why people spend so much time being so upset and so mean. It's like, what is the point? What do you get out of that?
I don't know.
But obviously,
either.
they're miserable human beings that need to do that.
But I also wanted to bring something up that I'm not sure is useful, is actually calling people bullies. Maybe just focusing on the behavior that we want to change, because the power of the label is really huge. We know enough. We've done enough studies to know that if you label someone, you're gonna kind of morph into your label. And I almost feel like kids are growing, they're learning, and as you brought up, there's trouble. I mean, they're bullying for a reason.
Right.
And how useful is it to put that label on them?
That's a great question. Or a great point, because I think you're right. I think labels are tough.
They can be, yeah.
They're useful to identify, but then they're boxes. And
Yes.
and you stick.
And being maybe a 13-year-old who's being troubled, maybe being bullied at home.
Right.
And then to be being called a bully, I'm not sure that's serving anybody.
Well, and so many studies for so many types of bad behavior, even abuse. If you were abused, you have a tendency to go ahead and abuse.
That's true, though. We don't need to deny that. That's
right.
true.
So,
yes.
I think you're on a great point where if you take away part of the stigmatism of it, and just try to address the behavior
The behavior.
of,
You're a good kid, but we don't want this.
But this is
We're
bad
not going to
behavior.
allow. Right.
Right.
We're not going to let you do it because it's hurting you too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not like you can put that on your resume. Oh,
No,
I bullied
that's right.
everybody in 7th
well,
grade.
let's talk about some of the consequences of this because I did my homework here. The results of bullying. The suicide.
Oh,
People are, they're deathly afraid to go to school. They're deathly, we're human beings, and part of that is our interconnection. And when you feel you're on the out, there's no one to go to, you're likely to self-harm, actually 4 times more likely than the mainstream population to self-harm. 37% of LGBT folks who are being bullied that's the only amount that feels happy, as opposed to 67% of the population who's not being bullied. So that's a huge discrepancy. So there are huge consequences. There's also mental health consequences of depression and anxiety. And then even the basic consequence of how do you study? And that's going to hinder you in the long run, getting out from underneath all of that.
Right.
Hard to pay attention when you're afraid to go to the hallway or,
right.
Oh,
absolutely. And I mean, that's such a great point because it's like adding a burden onto a very burdensome time in your life anyway.
Yes.
I mean, your brain is growing,
Yep.
you're growing,
Yep.
You got a ton to deal with. Everybody says, oh, I wish I were younger. No, I don't.
No. Everything's new and
no,
raw.
Thanks.
Yeah.
New. Because it's so hard. And I look at middle schoolers now, and we've got kids that are 11 and 9, and I think, my God, it's so different now. Mm-hmm. It's so different. There's so much more to deal with.
Yes.
And you have to really be a solid human being to be able to get through it.
Yes.
And that goes to schools, that goes number one to parents.
Yep.
You've got to teach your kid some of the basic tools to just be.
Well, I think we're lacking in some resilience.
Very much.
Yeah, I think we are lacking in a bit of resilience. And I don't mean that as like every child isn't resilient or something like that, but it does seem, I know colleges across the country are really reporting problems that students are really struggling with mental health issues in a way that you and I weren't back in our day.
Right.
And I'm also, again, it kind of goes back to labeling. Are we over-labeling things? If you have a little anxiety, now you have an anxiety disorder.
Right, and you need a pill for it.
And you need a pill. Right, you need a pill, and I almost wonder if in some ways it's crippling people from just, being a little sturdier, a little hardier.
Sometimes, I often fall back on the old saying, "Suck it up, Buttercup."
Yeah,
walk it off, kid.
Shake it off.
Shake it off. Because I think you're right. I think that there's definitely a generation coming up, and some of the millennials too. You'll notice are coddled, and there's a sense of entitlement. Mm-hmm. And I think that life is hard. There are hard parts, there are great parts. Mm-hmm. There are big ups, big downs.
And it's contrast.
Life.
It's a contrast.
That's life every single day.
Yeah.
Ups and downs, peaks and valleys. That's
true.
That's the way it goes.
Yeah.
If you're doing this, tell me about it, because I don't know how you're up how you're having a great life.
Right. And maybe that's part of it, though, is that we do have this unrealistic expectation that we're going to be happy all the time.
I agree with that wholeheartedly,
yeah,
and I think kids these days aren't. I mean, it's teased about a lot in the media about how everybody gets a trophy at the sports game, because there is no disappointment, because Johnny cried, There's disappointment,
right?
And it doesn't have to be crushing to you don't have to crush a 9-year-old's dreams with it, but
to learn to to be in second place.
And that it's okay. And that there are lots of second place people who keep trying and they get to first place.
Right. Right. But where do you think that's coming from?
I think it's a shift in generations, and I think the parents right now are they're like helicopter parents.
Yes, that's a big thing right now. Yeah.
That's a big thing.
Yeah.
Where you need some water. I'll do what. Because everything has to be perfect for Johnny, because it wasn't perfect for them. I want to make this life absolutely flawless. Yeah. And it's like, okay, that's great. And then they're going to go to school.
That's not realistic. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then they're going to get a job. Yeah. And then they're going to really have no skills to fall back on to deal with
disappointment.
And just plain old life. You know how it is. I mean, my God, your life is incredible.
It was turned around.
You should have yourself as a guest. You should hop over here and interview yourself. Yeah.
I was interviewed last month. I think there is a lot of truth to that. I think that we're hovering. The other thing I've noticed is, I don't know about you, but when we were kids, we had pickup games. We didn't have, everything wasn't structured. Everything wasn't about rules. And it seems like, I feel like everything's organized. And kids are going from one thing to another, and they're not playing, and they're not just making up games and having disappointments and losing and feeling bad and and getting back up. And there's just a whole different. They're not playing in the way that we played.
Not at all. They're
yes.
Their thumbs in great shape. Their thumbs My thumbs were not as a kid. Well, but they're not. They're not. Go outside and breathe some fresh air and run around and stuff like that. No, it's definitely
well, and also what I'm thinking too is that we just didn't have parents who were always making the rules and making everything fair. You know what I mean? Like, because now it's like everything has to be fair, but it's not.
Do you have siblings?
That's a complicated question. Okay. But yes, I do, and that would be like foster siblings, step siblings, so whatever. Yes, I do.
Because that's where you also learn that life isn't fair.
Yes.
And to try and make it super fair all the time.
Right.
Is ridiculous.
Right.
It's not going to work.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
No. Oh, this is great. This is great. So, you weren't bullied. I thought for sure you would have been, but I should have known you weren't going to be, right?
I wasn't. In fact, it's interesting. I don't remember even witnessing a lot of bullying, but again, it could have been my complete lack of awareness of it.
And we don't want to downplay. I mean, there's a difference between maybe being teased a bit now and then literally being targeted.
I mean, there are cases that I see, and I mean, and you're right. It's all about the social online stuff.
Yes.
It is brutal and relentless.
Yes.
And never ending.
Right.
And I don't know. I mean, that's where I think you have to, as a parent, really be in charge of your kids, what they're doing online. Yes. I mean, because that's where a lot of the bullying starts.
Yeah.
It does, and then it just
morphs
into school, into real people bullying you, and it's so much harder, and it's so much more prevalent, and so much easier to bully.
Yes.
It's so easy to do it, You can sit there anonymous
and be detached. Because you're so detached, because if you are that anonymous person, I'm not sure you're connecting your behaviors.
You're not. You're just spewing out your
venom.
What you think is an amazing opinion, obviously, because you want to share it. I mean,
but I'm just having an insight when you're talking, because that does make sense. If you're bullying back in the day when we were,
Yeah.
you were seeing the consequence of your behavior. The person would cry or
Immediately,
hurt, and
right.
yeah. And
In
if you're
front of you.
behind, you're not seeing the pain you're inflicting.
No, not
You
at
don't
all.
know that person's, they're crying, that you've crossed a line.
I don't want to get political at all, but literally, if you look at our president and the tweets he sends out,
Yes. I think it
Some-
speaks volumes.
some could say that is a form of bullying.
Yes.
I
I
mean-
think most of us are in agreement with this.
I suppose if you're watching this show right now, you're going to be in agreement. But
Yeah. And he's our leader, setting a
and that's,
tone.
yeah, I know.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's confusing too for kids.
And the incident with the teacher initiating it, and then the kids will think that's okay.
Right.
And I remember I've done some work over at Reiki School, and I'll never really forget. I think the teacher was quite well-meaning. But well-meaning doesn't always cut it,
Right.
however. But there was a child who was struggling, whose social skills were just awkward. And her solution was to isolate him more and more. And it really kind of gave permission to other kids would ignore him even
Right.
more. And it almost just kept morphing. And so anytime this kid tried to do anything, it was wrong. And it was in some ways, but no one was correcting it beyond more isolation, more isolation, more
Yeah.
isolation. Yeah.
It reminds me, as soon as you said that, I was thinking about a kid in grade school growing up, again in Idaho, and I remember he was the kid that kind of came to school dirty.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody talked to him. He was a little behind in class and stuff, and he was isolated. He wasn't so much bullied as he was ignored, which I think is almost as bad.
I want to say
in many
actually
ways.
maybe even more.
worse.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I'll never forget, it was Christmas. This was back in the day when you could actually do Christmas at schools. And we had like a Yankee swap kind of thing. You
Yep.
picked a name and that's,
Yep.
and the teacher got this kid's name and gave him for Christmas. And I'll never forget, this was second grade, so it was quite some time ago, but gave him soap. And I was, as a 7-year-old,
Even know, yeah.
I was so taken aback by that because I thought, oh, he's going to be upset at that, Why didn't you just get him a toy?
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm sure he's got a situation where that's why he's coming to school like this.
Right.
Hey, he's coming to school.
Right,
Right.
right.
So I felt so bad, and I just this conversation made me think, I'm sure there have been many cases of bullying that I have been privy to, because I think that's a definite
Absolutely.
case of it.
That's I think it's a great point, because that's the subtle bullying we don't talk enough about either.
Right.
What about everybody gets invited to the party but you?
Right.
Or and maybe your social skills are a bit off, but you're not quite sure why, and then it just does morph more because the response is to ignore you, and then it gets worse. I think too, being ignored, it's almost the human need to be recognized, so you'll try harder, and that almost creates even more of a power differential.
Right.
And then it becomes more of a a vicious cycle. So I think it is a huge issue.
Find me an office that doesn't have some sort of hierarchy.
Yes.
And the cool kids.
Yes.
And the
It seems like we're playing this. It's so funny because I've heard so many times in a work situation. I feel like I'm in high school. It's like I don't think I ever laughed. I'm 46, and whenever I've been, someone's.
you're just a baby.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. But yeah, there's always something. There's always somebody kind of at the bottom, and
Yep,
there's somebody. Yeah.
I think that that I don't think you're ever going to get rid of. I
No,
think that's
probably
just
not.
the way human beings
Yeah.
have to categorize
nature.
human beings.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's always going to be the cool kids.
There
and
is.
There's always and I think I knew I wasn't a cool kid, so I was good with that.
Okay. Okay.
So I was.
Were you good at sports or anything?
Oh
or is
dear
it-
God, no! I didn't get this body from playing sports. No, I was the funny kid.
Okay, yep.
So I knew, if anything else, I could talk my way out of anything.
Okay, good,
So that was sort of my. I was witty.
You were witty. Well, your show is witty, very
thank you.
witty, very witty. And so, what else we can talk about? We'll transition this a little bit.
Okay.
maybe LGBT and trying to access healthcare. Have you ever felt that was a problem at all for you?
No, it hasn't been. But I know that is.
Yeah, it can be, especially for
Yeah.
trans folks. That's something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah.
It's something that, I am not really familiar with. You have opened my eyes to so much just because of all that you've had to go through. And no, I'm sure it's a horrible situation for a lot of people. But I don't have any experience.
But
with
you
it.
haven't had that experience.
No,
That's awesome
I
to
know.
So when you came out, you felt comfortable going to your doctor and didn't feel there was any kind of nothing like that.
No,
Okay.
I don't really. I'm not a huge fan of the doc.
Okay, so you try to avoid it at all costs. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's probably the male hormone in me is that I avoid the doctor.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I didn't have any issues at all.
Okay, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Because that was actually, it had come up in my research a bit. That was that LGBT folks. There are some discrepancies with them in mainstream, having access to health care, getting quality health care. In our case, for trans folks, of course, getting some of the procedures we need, getting some of the hormones we need. You want to slip to this interview? You feel like interviewing me then? Go ahead.
Oh my God, because I was just thinking, insurance.
Yes.
I'm sure insurance doesn't cover that.
It didn't for me initially. Now I take hormones, obviously, and then the first year that I took them, I had to pay for them, and I was on disability, and for me, it really was a choice. Like, am I going to go to the food pantry so I can get my hormones? How am I going to negotiate this? And that was a real chore. And there were many times that I opted to buy the hormones. It was that important to me.
Well, of course.
Yeah, it was that important.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. I just read an article about kidney transplants in Maine. They wouldn't accept people who needed a kidney transplant who took medical marijuana, and they are now proposing a bill to stop that.
Okay.
So some poor guy who had such pain and no prescription could do it, which was on medical marijuana, had to make the choice of, okay, do I stop taking the thing that makes me live daily comfortably, so that I can get the thing that's going to make me live?
Right.
And it's like, what a horrible
what a choice. Right.
What
a choice.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
And then there's one area in which there is still some discrimination: is you can't accept the blood of a gay man.
That's ridiculous.
Yes, it's outrageous, and especially because we know how to screen for HIV.
Of course.
So it's not an issue anymore.
And it has been, I wrote an article about that for our website because I find it unacceptable.
It is, absolutely.
There's no reason for it.
No.
If there was a reason for it, and maybe back in the 80s when it started, there was a reason for it.
Well, we didn't know how to screen then.
Right.
Yeah.
And okay, I get it.
Yeah.
But that was decades ago.
Yes.
And we know we're far advanced in how we screen blood. And we can find anything in blood.
Yeah.
And to not accept it still.
When it's so desperately needed. Yeah. It
like,
saves a life.
It saves a life.
Yes. And it's an issue for me. And I have the rarest blood type, so
of course you do.
And
My God, Matthew, what type do you have? Of course you have the rarest kind.
And and being trans it precludes me. So that is a real it's a shame. It's a shame. So
you can't give blood.
Well, I did fight it, and then they were going to do it, but interestingly, I don't know if it's changed because it's been several months.
Right.
But what happened is I had to portray myself as female if I was going to donate blood. Now, all my identification is male.
Well, of course it is.
Right. And so I was not
because you identify as a male.
Right. And I wasn't going to consent to that. So that was my dilemma.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So for me, dysphoria is quite still prominent in me. And for me, hormones really are kind of life and death situation.
Of course they are.
Yes,
It's not like,
right.
Do I eat an apple today or an orange?
Right. This is for me.
How you live.
Yep.
Literally.
Literally. So let's talk about bathrooms. Would you want me in your bathroom?
You know what? Yeah, you can. I just don't want the kids in my bathroom. That's all. But you can use my bathroom. The bathroom thing is the stupidest thing on the planet.
I agree.
I mean to tell you, we've done some really stupid whoppers, but this one,
this is just takes the cake.
This one takes the cake because the thing that is crazy pants is that transgender people have been using the bathroom of their choice forever.
Yes, yes.
Forever.
Right.
So all of a sudden now you're gonna, first of all, if you're in the bathroom, just do what you're in there for and leave.
Right. Isn't that what we're all there for,
Nobody goes to the bathroom at Walmart to hang out.
No.
And like have some quiet time, some me time. I'm gonna just hang out. No, it's first of all, it's a public bathroom. Get in, get out.
Right. I know who wants to use it anyways.
Honest to God, it's and I don't even know. I don't even understand the fear behind it.
I don't either. I mean, of course, we've been peddling this very awful myth of, a dangerous trans woman being in the bathroom. And it is a myth because I've done the research. There has not been one single case. Not one.
Not one.
No,
that's right.
There have been, however, 5 cases of cisgender men.
That's right.
Yeah. To prove a point.
Oh my God.
And I think it's outrageous. So I'm so glad that you laugh so hard.
It's making me upset. That one blows my mind. And
to me, that's bullying. Is that not bullying? It's big systematic bullying.
Huge systematic bullying.
Yeah, systematic bullying.
Excellent phrase. I like that.
You might use it tomorrow. I'm gonna have to tune in.
That's right. Systematic bullying. Yes, it is, and it needs to stop. And I don't understand why government is reversing.
Yeah.
Good for North Carolina for stepping in a big pile of dew, and for businesses saying, you know what?
Yeah, we're not going
to participate.
Yep.
We're going to pull the basketball championships. We're going to pull the good.
And that's happening in Texas as well. They're doing similar. If you're gonna do this, we're not going to do business here.
And that's, you know what? A lot of times people say, oh, what can I do? What can I do? Including myself. I get so mad at this, but absolutely, if there is a business that, I will support that business, or I won't support that business, because money talks.
To me, it's actually probably about the most effective social activism we can do is where you're going to spend your buck.
Yep.
That, to me, is about the biggest piece of activism I can do.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's capitalism. You're not changing that one in this interview.
I
can tell you that, right?
That. Yeah.
But definitely. And I will give Trump credit for one thing. He has, as no other president has, gotten people involved.
To get more active. Yeah. That's true.
I
That's
have to
true.
say,
that's true.
Kudos to President Trump, because seriously, have you ever seen
people coming together
involved?
Yeah. No, I haven't.
America,
right,
than you have now.
Yeah.
I mean, perhaps with the civil rights in the 60s, pre my time, I'm not that old, but I don't even know if that time there was such a collectiveness in wanting to be involved.
Right, I agree. That's a good point.
Few of the protests over the past few months have proven that.
Absolutely. And people, and even myself, I'm not a person who's gotten very active usually, but I wrote an editorial.
Right.
And I'm doing all kinds of things to start addressing in my own way. I personally won't attack a candidate, a person, but I am passionate about issues.
Yes.
And I've gotten much more involved than I've ever have in my entire life. Yep.
See?
Yep.
There you
it has.
go.
Yeah.
And that's good. And that's how you do it too. You do it through the issues, not the person.
Yes. I don't agree with. Yes. That's bullying too.
Yeah. It is. You're not going to. The loudest person in the room doesn't get always the change. You might get heard, but it's the one that has. It's. I always go to work because that's what I do an awful lot. But if you don't like something that's happening, don't just say, I don't like that.
Do something.
Either have a suggestion on how it can be better.
Yes.
Or, but just sitting there and complaining, who can't do that?
Anyone can do that. Anyone can have a reaction, Lori.
Right.
Anyone can have a reaction. To me, I think, the adult thing, I don't even know how to phrase it, but is to sit with some of that discomfort, sort through it, and then make a plan, a strategy, and do something about it. Yeah, a complaining, just, whatever, vent with your friend, but then move on and do
if
something.
if you are that upset about it, then you should get involved.
Absolutely.
There's opportunities everywhere.
Yeah.
To get
so
involved.
what are some of your favorite? I know you're involved with cancer a lot with the cancer.
Yeah. Through the station I've been introduced to, there's so many worthy causes out there.
Aren't there? Yeah.
And I, as part of being on air, I am emailed and Facebook messaged a ton with requests for help, and I try to help everyone. I can't help everyone to the level of that they would want, or I would even want to do. But if you ask for help, I will help you in any way I can. That could be, I'll get information up on our website or our Facebook page, or something to get word out of an event coming up. But the one that we're the most involved in, and the one I'm the most passionate about, is our annual fundraiser for breast cancer. My mom passed away from breast cancer, and there's an organization called Cancer Community Center.
Yes.
And they are their tagline is, "We're the place to go when you don't know where to go."
Yeah.
When you get that diagnosis of you've got cancer,
Yeah.
and you sit there stunned and go, "What do I do?" Call them.
Oh, they have the best activities.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they have mentoring programs, and
and it's free.
Yes, it is, completely. And it's beautiful space.
Yeah, it's a great
yes,
space.
It's a beautiful space.
I do, in fact, I'll do a little plug for something that I'm coming up on April 6th. There is Pouring for a Purpose.
Okay.
So there's some adult beverages being poured over at Thompson's Point.
Okay.
And all the money goes to the Cancer Community Center. I'm doing the live auction for them because I've made it my goal to help them in any way I can, because they actually, my parents lived in Idaho and I lived in Maine, and when my mom was going through some scary treatment for her she'd never gone through before, and I'm all the way in Maine and she's in Idaho.
Yes, yeah.
I asked the Cancer Community Center, it still gets me choked up, I'm not gonna cry though. I said, is there anything you guys can do to help? And they actually hooked her up with a buddy. They have a buddy program.
Yes, yeah.
And even though she was way out in Idaho, they hooked her up with a buddy in Maine.
Wow.
Who went through the treatments that she had gone through, so that she could talk to somebody
to talk
who
to.
had been through it.
Yep.
So I will always have a soft spot in my heart for
Sure.
this place, and will always do as much as I can for them. But I have I have a soft heart.
Yes.
Pokey.
I know.
And I try to help as there's just so many worthy causes.
But that
out
one
there.
you're
But
particularly passionate.
That one is personal.
Sure.
That one's
sure.
personal.
I was hooked up with the buddy program too, and we wound up being friends about a good year afterwards.
Yeah,
we did lose contact after.
Yeah,
but,
of course.
But it was instrumental. Once a week, like clockwork, I knew we were going to either talk or get together, and it made all the difference. I knew what to expect.
Yep.
I knew, there was someone I could just share with, because sometimes people, I hate to say this, but almost want to put always positive spin. And it was with her that I could just be free to be like, this sucks.
You know what? Because it does.
Yeah.
And it's okay that it sucks.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody who said, I hate this whole thing about breast cancer being pink.
Oh, okay.
What's with the pink?
What's with the pink?
Pink this, pink that. And she goes, breast cancer sucks. I don't want to see pink everywhere. And I thought, you know what? Absolutely, I
It's
get
true.
that.
Yep.
I
Yep.
get that.
Yep.
And if you pick a color,
whatever
color you want.
Right.
But I get that. It's and Cancer Community Center, a place where you can just
be yourself. Yeah.
And whether that's up, down, in the middle, whatever.
I know, because you're going through so much. And I remember when I lost my hair, all of it. And I mean every single, everything.
Because people
eyelashes,
don't realize, right,
yes.
all hair.
And I just remember, and I know everyone meant well, but it was like, it's just hair. But you felt bad.
It's not just hair, man. It's how you feel.
And I was trying to, almost be there for them too in some ways. Like, you're right, it'll grow back. And the truth is, I was heartbroken.
Right.
I was heartbroken. And I'll never forget, it was a beautiful day, and I was just pulling my hair out, and it didn't hurt. I mean, it's not like that, but it was just watching it. It was just awful.
Yeah, some of you're like throwing away your
identity.
identity.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, which needed to be sloughed in my situation, but you know what I mean. So, yeah, but you know,
you do have an awful lot of layers to you,
there's a lot of layers going on here. Yeah, but I remember, I don't know. I was really, and everybody, I think. No, without any exception, it's just hair. It's just hair.
Right.
But it wasn't just hair.
But they're trying
to be,
But I always wonder, would you have appreciated if someone came up to you and said, "Good God, what happened? You have no hair. Holy cow, that's got to be hard."
I'd have been like, "Thank you."
Would you? Because I do wonder, because people are so. They're afraid.
They are.
Of how they don't want to hurt you.
No.
You know what I mean?
Well, you know what I would appreciate sometimes, I think, when you're going through something rough, is maybe just sitting with the person and not having to try to make it better.
Yeah.
Just like, that must suck. And leave it at that even.
And let them
and sometimes when I visited people who are in the hospital or whatever, sometimes I will literally say, I don't know what to say.
Sure.
But I'm here for you.
Right.
And that's a thought, But you're right. I mean, and I knew they meant well, and it wasn't like my feelings were hurt. Yeah.
Right. And they, it's just that awkward, oh, Lord.
No, but what I would do is, of course, rise to the occasion and be like, yeah, it is just hair, but with my buddy, I cried. It was heartbroken. I was heartbroken, and I mean the eyelashes were gone, and everything. And so, but I felt that buddy system. I love that template because I feel like there's so many things we could apply. The cancer template too.
Yeah.
Mental health issues. Trauma issues. Imagine if like you were diagnosed with a mental health issue. Well, welcome to the club, and here's a buddy, and here's some resources, and what a great community we have here. You know what I mean?
Any resource that maybe even for bullying, going back to the original topic of listen, I was bullied, and there are tons of mentors out there that say, listen, I was bullied for years growing up, and
even better, I was a bully.
Right, even better.
I was a bully. Yeah.
And, I know some of the reasons you're doing this.
Yep.
So I know some of the reasons you shouldn't do it.
Yep, you're a good person, and we're going to get you back. We're going to bring you out of this.
Matthew, what other problems in the world can we solve today?
I don't know. I'm thinking, let's think here. I think we covered quite a few, Lori. I think we covered quite a few. It seems about time to wrap it up. Does this feel good to you? Is there anything you wanted to add at all?
No, well, yes, I did want to add one thing. It is a pleasure. I am honored that you asked me to be on your show. I find you to be an incredible human being, and one that should be the mentor and be the person that we have been discussing today, because
thank you.
You have a ton of answers in your tiny short little body.
5 feet.
I'm always psyched when I'm taller than somebody, so. So thank you, and thank you for what you do and for what you're trying to accomplish. I wish you only the best. I think I don't have to wish you the best because you're on a trajectory for greatness.
Thriving, yes.
Yeah,
thriving,
so yes. I'm really, really proud of you and really happy for you.
Thank you, Lori. Well, viewers, I hope you enjoyed this. We've tackled some bullying, we have tackled cancer, some mental health stuff with a bit of humor. And when you're thinking of bullying, think of the behavior and try maybe not to label the person, with the goal being that we want to restore both. We want both people to come back. But be aware there is problems going on. Bullying is a serious problem, and if you're witnessing it, if it's being inflicted on you, get help. Don't just stand around and let that happen. And if you're the person struggling with the behavior, also get help. So my viewers, I thank you for tuning in, and we will see you again next month.